It's great to be here with everybody. And Jarrod and Abdul, welcome. I'm so glad to be spending this time with you. Um, I got to spend time with Abdul and Jarrod in previous customer advisory boards, being on the customer side. And now it's great because we get to sit and we're going to pretend we're back at one of those cabs sitting around a table and chatting. So with that, Jarrod, Abdul, would you go ahead and share with me a little bit about, the topic for today really is about zero trust and enhancing that security posture and doing that through a zero trust approach. For you though, so many people talk about zero trust, but for you, what does zero trust really mean? And maybe, Jarrod, we could start with you. What does it mean to you and what has it meant to your organization?
Hi, Pam. Thanks for the quick intro. To me, zero trust in very, very high level terms means employees can securely and seamlessly, there's a key word there, access their applications and data when they need it, where they need it, wherever they are globally. And I think it's a key thing to think through it from that perspective, because the user is so important, and the experience is so important for folks as they access their stuff. The other key word there obviously is securely. You don't just want to open everything up. So in terms of zero trust, it means it limits the risk profile or limits the risk surface for attacks, but it also gives our employees the ability to be more productive no matter where they are globally.
That's awesome. Abdul, how about for you and Manpower?
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Jarrod. I will do a little bit of different view into that. In our daily lives, we practice zero trust without even thinking about it. Why can't we do that same for our digital life? We allow our friends and family to come into our homes, but we both accept and understand the limits. If our guests try to go to our master bedroom bathroom instead of using the one in the hallway, we get concerned. I think same limitation and micro-segmentation should be applied to our digital lives. Zero trust is basically giving least privilege access to users, devices, and even premises. Authenticate each for access to each area, continually re-authenticate and reauthorize, right? Microsegmentation at the application level, generally people think about network, but not at network level. Allowing them in the network is like opening a door when you hear the knock. Doesn't mean as soon as you open the door, they're allowed to enter and roam in the whole house. Network and application should remain invisible to all until and otherwise granted access.
I think, well, okay, first of all, I don't know whether I'm a little creeped out by the analogy or it's really right spot on, right? Because anyone who's venturing towards my bedroom or my bathroom, I'm a little creeped out by that, right? And let's face it, when you think about, your analogy, it is really great, because if you think about somebody going towards those places within your environment that you don't want them, or you need that more secured, you start to get creeped out. So it really is right on spot there. Which kind of threw me off there a little bit, Abdul. But when you look at zero trust, I think you both are so key. In my mind also, it's about that identity and knowing who has the rights to what, right? And removing that thought process of the old days where you trusted everyone to go anywhere. And I think that's the piece that is shifting people's mindsets. And frankly, for some though, I think it's a change of psychology, right? Because really what we're talking about is changing truly a foundational way, where in the past, maybe you did that with boxes, maybe you did that where you just allowed free access. But do you see that this change of psychology to your technical staffs is part of that journey? Is that playing a role in all of this also? Please, either.
Yeah,
Abdul, you were shaking your head too.
I'll let Jarrod go first, since you called him out first. So let's follow that process instead of both of us speaking at the same time. So Jarrod first, and then he can pass it on to me.
Just don't follow me into my master bedroom, bathroom. That's weird. No, I think I think there's several, I think, forces of change occurring in all business. So a mental model shift or how people work is occurring because your younger generation of workers grow up as, you know, what I would call digital natives, and they expect technology to work, a certain degree of privacy, et cetera. You have folks that have learned how to work that way through their career, and then you have folks that still like to write things down on paper. And I think the mental models in organization with regards to digital transformation and technology will continue to challenge all of us as we think about infrastructure, cybersecurity, technical deployments of software. To get there requires a lot of influence and change. Great analogies like restroom analogies. I thought that was great. Not to pick on Abdul some more, but that was spot on. I think somebody had mentioned that in another message earlier. But I think the opportunity is for us to continue to drive that transformation by connecting folks with the business outcomes are as well. I don't know if that answers the question, but really we're seeing constant change in business because transformations occurring across all verticals, new waves and new types of employees who expect to work differently, and then the continual, you know, way for businesses to create value in society. So there's a lot to that.
That's great. I think
yeah, I will provide a little different. Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
No, please go ahead.
If I look at it, I think it is pain for many, but gain for many more. So pain for, first of all, IT organizations, because, you know, in the past, anyone was able to go and fix something if it is broken or they thought it's going to break. And most of the administrators had quite a lot of access to our environment. That is now not there or shouldn't be there. And, you know, they have to follow the process, they have to follow the controls. And then, you know, we have the logs and all of that stuff. At the same time, the pain comes from, you know, load of security tools that we are running in our systems. So today, if you look at it overall, the workload or the stress, the security tool, especially some of the real-time ones, are adding to our servers and our PCs is just phenomenal, right? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the more gain that I was talking about is gaining the trust of our internal users, as well as our executives, as well as our board members, you know, shareholders and everyone. And we are keeping ourselves on task all the time. So in my opinion, I think what is happening is that we are at that crossroad of acceptance from the technology challenges, where our technology is causing us some headaches, and we are always in a mode of staying ahead of the game for many reasons. One of those is you know, bad actors, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my view.
That's awesome. I think, you know, again, it's that change in mindset that enables, right? Because what we're really doing with Zero Trust is enabling what yesterday we maybe said no to. I find that shift from that, well, no, we can't do that, or, well, that's going to expose us even more so, where that shift from that no world to this now, okay, let's enable, but enable securely in a very targeted response, right? So, you know, when I look at the days of yesterday and connecting again users to any resources they wanted to, and they just went east-west, and now looking at, you know, connecting users to specific applications as opposed to allowing them free reign. And, you know, again, going back to the analogy, where do they go? Only allow them that authorized, authenticated connectivity to an application really does change the security posture of a company. Have you both seen that change, whether it was, because I also see with Zero Trust, you enhance your visibility into what's really occurring, because you now know specifically what's occurring, where users are going, how, you know, how they may be potentially even using those resources. Is that changed you in running of your business or your environments?
I'm going to back on to one other thing you mentioned when we were talking about the mind shift, and then I'll jump into that question. You hit on something that's important, and I'll share a personal story. Prior to my role as CIO, I was Koch's Chief Information Security Officer, and when my boss at the time said, "Hey, we'd like you to take this role," I said, "No way. I want nothing to do with cybersecurity, because they are the team of no. They are the team of why and no. You can't do this. You can't do that. They slow things down." And I felt like it was not going to be a good job for me. And over time, I said, you know what, I'll take the job, I'll take the gig. And one of the first things I really worked with the team on is, instead of being the team of why do you want to do this? Why do you want to enable to do technology? Be the team of why not? Why not try it out? Why not experiment and innovate? Why not drive transformation in an organization and do it in a secure manner? So I think, again, mind shift is super critical, to getting an organization to switch to zero trust. With regards to like enhanced visibility, a clear understanding of what users are doing, gaining more insight to how they're leveraging their applications, when they're leveraging them, and then even dumping into things bigger like behavioral analytics. Does Pam every day come in and access her applications at the same time? Now you have a data point that allows you to see kind of what she's doing if you want to profile user behavior. And when you see gross variance, you have an ability to dig in and see if you have a security threat. See, I sound like a security guy now, right? Versus a CIO, because I spent time in that role. So I think the opportunity is there with zero trust to gain greater insights to users without seeming like Big Brother, right? To really mitigate risk for your organization because of the enhanced visibility. The worst thing you can do is start asking everybody why they're doing things differently. The best thing you can do is gain the visibility and watch for mega patterns and say, hey, we have a potential insider threat, or we have something else going on. And that's the important thing, I think, for us as leaders in industry to think through.
I think that's really great. Sorry, Pam, I again jumped in.
No, I was just commenting. I thought that was a great answer.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think those were, right on, Jarrod. And I would say, just building upon your points about the risk-based security and posture. I think, we can all go overboard. Pam, you're talking about change, what change and, behaviors and all of that stuff. I think we can all go overboard. We can spend as much money as our revenue and still not be secure, because there will always be smarter guys out there, right? So it is all about risk-based assessment, risk-based security. And to your point, Jarrod, it's not about whys, it's hows, and how we protect our assets, how do we protect our customers, and how do we protect our credibility. That is all what it is about. I mean, there might be some areas which we could spend, $10 million, but only gain benefit for about $1 million. Is it worth it? So, my point is that, yes, as I said, there are pains, but it's the biggest thing that we have seen is the change management is the key. Change management means if we're going to restrict or being stricter, we need to make sure that we communicate well, we plan it well, we design it well, so that we do not cause business impact. Because if business starts, grounds to halt, then it just kills the whole, security posture. So hardening or stricter control doesn't mean anything, because, might as well shut the business down and nobody needs to do anything, right? So that's, I think it's the change management, it's the organizational change environment, and then making sure that the tools are doing what they're supposed to do and not creating more problems. And one thing I will add in the change, I think what it has done, going back to the zero trust, what it has done is it has also created the whole industry of IGAM or IAM, right? So identity, governance, and access management. So everyone is going on that, and that's what goes into the whole microsegmentation and everything else. And I'll stop at that.
that's also, which, is a perfect time to ask the audience. We have a poll question for them. We're going to pop it up. If Julie, if you would help me with that. And as you're going ahead and answering that, if everyone would, we'll come back to the actual answers in a second. We have a couple questions that came up in the chat, and I'm going to start with the first question. The second question actually it came in, and the question was Zero Trust solely concerned with access control, or how can it aid in other cyber areas such as DLP, malware, shadow IT, and so forth? So we're gonna stay with the process. Jarrod, are you ready for that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it obviously, in my eyes, it bleeds into all of those items, right? So authorization and identity is one key component of a robust zero trust architecture, but you also have to think through DLP and the other items you mentioned, because to me, it's an enabler. Like it helps you truly understand what the user is accessing and doing, which allows you to, if you need to, based on risk, layer in additional controls. If you need to, based on type of employee, this might be answering the next question, but the type of user, if it's an employee, if it's a consultant, et cetera, if you need to restrict access to data in a certain way, Zero Trust gives you the fundamental backbone to allow that to happen. Pam can only access this system and this data. Right, you layer in DLP dictionaries or other fancy, expensive, or cool security tools on top of it, and it gives you the ability to have a pretty robust view on things.
Yeah, and again, I will thank you, Jarrod. I think it's working out pretty well. You answer, and then I can just take the lead.
You give the fun fact, the fun stories. I sound like a robot, so.
So I would say, just to add on, I will not repeat anything that Jarrod, you talked about, but again, exactly the same thing, DLP, but beyond DLP, I think it also reduces our management headache. So authorization or authentication is one factor, which is the simplest and the basics of our security management. But I think it also helps us limit the up or side crawlings as well. Some people who are genuinely inquisitive, and curious, and many a times you would see or hear in the industry that most of the hacks that happens internally is not by design, it's just because somebody was able to step onto something and suddenly they found something, and then they were able to either compromise the security or go out and sell the data. So I think it is not only about purely authentication, but it is way beyond that, as Jarrod said. The whole DLP is still a question, how do you manage it? So there's one thing which is outside in. Then what about inside in and inside out, right? So I think with the true zero trust technology, implementation will allow us not only to restrict, but for smarter people, if they are doing certain things, we can also log and capture, and as Jarrod said, do some correlation and see if there's an anomaly in the system, and what that anomaly is. It could be genuine. It could be one of the application which has leaks, right? And it could be benign, but it also keeps us somewhat at peace, and the CISOs can go to, sleep easily in the night, that there is no unexpected open doors or windows. Again, using the analogy of the house, so you have 3-story house, you could lock all the doors, but if your windows are ajar, because you want a little cooler air on the first floor, you're screwed, especially if you're living in a bad area. Or for opportunists, right? So second floor, yes, maybe, but still be careful. And the third floor, but then again, if you're living in an area where there's a lot of water, then you're screwed with the mosquitoes as well. So all of those things, you need to think about and close down. I mean, that's what I think.
I think that's great. I think, the thing about the shadow IT is, one of the things I found in previous life was, because we had this new found visibility, we were able to actually see destinations. And because of zero trust, you see a destination. And when we saw these destinations, and you keep seeing a number of individuals potentially going to this cloud hosted service, you sit back and say, okay, hold on. They must have spun something up before we had the visibility or put the controls in place, because let's face it, a lot of organizations, shadow IT spun up instances before really organizations got a handle and said, no, you can't do that, or, locked it down. And so I think it does help with shadow IT also. And I think the other thing is that we both touched on is identity. So many people talk about the fact that it really comes down to identity, being able to know who it is, to know whether or not they have the authorization and can authenticate to something. But I also hear from a lot, and I'd love to get your opinions on this, because I hear from a lot of our peers out there that they get stuck with moving towards zero trust because I got to clean up identity first. I've got to go ahead, and my identity, is just a mess. We've had a bunch of acquisitions, we have a bunch of domains, and not sure, we think that's our first place to start. So, could you talk a little bit about that aspect?
I'll keep with the pattern. So I'm expecting a house or a car analogy out of this, Abdul. That's the challenge. So I think one of the things you touched on is, as people look at zero trust, they want to understand, and they know they have to clean up identity, and they feel like they have basically what I would call technical debt. I have to go clean up all of this before I'm able to proceed with that. The way we approached is we took, a risk-based or risk-optimized approach. So you don't have to have 100% in order to mitigate risk or move quicker, make things happen. And I think it's really, really important, as IT professionals or as leaders in your organizations, to think through, do I want to spend time and do all of the analysis to save $1 million? Right, I'm gonna make some things up here, right, to save $1 million, or do I want to spend 70 to 80% of the time to save 5 million? What makes more sense? Right, and that's the crux of what happens in a lot of technology-based organizations. They zero in on wanting to be right because they're analytical by nature, and they don't feel like they can take a certain degree of risk, or they're afraid they're going to have a miss. So I think it's really important when you think about identity, or when you think about your current network architecture or your current tool set, as you're looking at a zero trust or even any modern architecture rollout in your organization, to think through how much is good enough, and what's the risk that we're mitigating, and what's the value going to be, versus I have to have all of the facts before I make a decision. It's a hard thing for people to go through, but when you get good at it, you move much, much quicker, and you see the value quicker. And then you also go back and adjust. So maybe you do 80%, you go back and you fix the 20% later if there's value in it. If not, you flag that as technical debt you've created that you'll have to address some other point in your life, right? But you at least understand what that is, and you record it as an exception, and you track it and you manage it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to speak until Pam says.
No. See, I caught on. I'm just quiet now, please.
All right. Okay. So, Jarrod, I'm not going to use any house analogy this time. I'm going to break the monotony. So my view is that, so Pam, you brought up a very key concern from the operating arms of a company, especially technology, which is, so because it is all identity management, so do we wait and fix our identity management environment, all the identities, there could be a company with 1,000 people, it could be a company with 500,000 people, which there are, right? So what do you do? In my opinion, it should not be sequential. You do not start a day thinking that, until I lose, there's another analogy, until I lose 100 pounds, I'm not going to start exercising because it's too difficult, right? So, so I think what it is that, or until I lose 100 pounds, I'm not going to start bicycling because I'm going to break the wheels. So I think the way I look at it is never trust, always verify, right? So zero trust means that, okay, you know what, we don't know, we have 30,000 people or 100,000 people in the organization. So yes, they are here. We cannot put in a zero trust architecture from day one, but let's call it, we know them, but we don't trust them. Let's verify every time they access a system. If we start putting in tools which can capture their activities, and here's the value that I think Zscaler brings in from the egress or ingress point of view, all the URL filtering that happens. If we start from that point onward, Zscaler will start capturing all of those IDs, and then we can assign for you guys to go and analyze, who those people are, what they're doing. I think that there are multiple ways that we can do by monitoring every step of those IDs, doing what they're doing, moving where they're moving, if it is triggering a large set of data leaving or coming into the organization, which is, anomalies, So all of those things. So the simple answer is no, you don't have to wait to get better at something or, have perfect ID management system before you can start controlling things.
That's great. Thank you both. We're going to pop up our last poll question because we're kind of running up on our last 5 minutes of our time together. Really, zero trust in my mind kind of breaks down very simply to really a user to an application, irrelevant of where the user or an application resides, not allowing that east-west traffic, right? Stopping all that ability to traverse a network, a flat network specifically. You may have applications sitting in you may have them SaaS-based applications, you may have cloud hosted, you may have a hybrid cloud strategy. I think it's all about understanding and allowing that ubiquitous connectivity for a user to an application. And when you think about all that, and tying into not only the user piece, because that's one portion of it, and it's great because after we're done, Peter Smith's going to come on talking about the second piece that really, I think, encompasses the entire zero trust conversation of an app to an app segmentation. But if you both would just take a couple minutes and talk about what advice, because you both have gone down the zero trust path, what advice would you give your peers who are starting out on their journey? Is there something that you wish you would have thought of then that now you could help them?
It's going to sound like a summary of the last question, but I mean, it's like if I had to put it in a couple bullet points, it's you don't boil the ocean, right? Understand your high risk areas, focus there first, gain visibility, and then optimize. I mean, that to me is kind of something that's repeatable and can be leveraged is like, I mean, Koch acquires companies all the time, and that's kind of the path we take, right? Gain visibility, don't expect to fix everything, kind of to Abdul's point. Focus on high risk areas and then go through an optimization process. And it makes a big difference when you look at it. When we started down our zero trust journey, there was a natural tendency by the security team, right, to prevent everything, to block everything, to lock everything down, right? It wasn't until we really sat down and had kind of a visioning discussion where we talked about, mitigate the highest risk areas, focus on the others, then optimize, that we were able to turn the corner differently. And it requires tough discussions, especially, so I'm not a traditional cybersecurity professional, right? But I was in a cybersecurity role and I had to work through that with the team. So, got to be careful not to come across as open the doors and let everybody in, right? Mm-hmm. We want to do the zero trust model, but you also, like I have heavy emphasis on, the user, the consumer experience. We want things to be seamless and frictionless. So you got to set the vision at a high enough level and a connected enough level to allow people to move forward.
Yeah, I think I will take a little bit. So thank you, Jarrod. I think you have covered everything. You have used up some of my bullet points I was going to talk about. So I'll reduce my list of items. My advice would be, you don't need to know everything, but know who your truly valuable, credible, and trustworthy partners are. You cannot, as Jarrod said, that he came in, he was running security, but he was not a traditional CISO. But you don't need to be, as long as you have good partners, right?
That's
And
right.
again, I would say Zscaler has been a very good partner to us, and many other, my peers, in the other organizations I've seen. Understand your business, your customers, and your technology landscape. That would give you a lot of insight in terms of what you want to do. Again, risk-based, risk averse, or whichever way you guys think, and depending also on what business or what business sector you're in. Employ risk-based technology and cybersecurity approach, not just because I can buy 29 tools, so I'm going to use 29 tools. And then the last one I would say, easiest and fastest way will be to start from cloud security, protecting your perimeters and internal segmentations. Those are the high level points I think I would talk about.
I know we're out of time, but I wanted to throw
please.
one more thing out there. And the pandemic taught a lot of businesses a lot of things. And I'm just going to share with you guys at a super high level, Koch's experience during the pandemic. We have 122,000 employees in 70 countries globally, everything from manufacturing to software to consumer products, consumer goods, automotive products, et cetera. So Koch's involved in a lot of verticals. And when the pandemic hit and countries started enforcing stay-at-home orders, et cetera, it was a non-event for our organization because we had implemented the zero trust architecture, and an employee working at home from their home network using the microsegmentation and ZPA in order to access their applications in the cloud or in our data centers, that experience was no different than when they're at the office. It was a non-event for our organization. We weren't one of the companies that were scrambling to call other providers to say, hey, I need more VPN licenses or more VPN concentrators. And frankly, I sent my boss at the time, hey, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? We went down this zero trust journey, not because we knew a pandemic was coming, right? We went down the zero trust journey to talk about all the other, benefits that we talked about earlier today. But an outside benefit of this is when, the wave hit China first, we sent our employees in China home and they worked with no problem. As it went through Europe and as it hit the US, same thing. We had no problems, no issues from a Koch point of view. And I think that's a testament to, our technology vision, key partners like Zscaler and others that we've worked with over the years to have a zero trust and cloud enabled architecture.
Abdul, you want to take 30 seconds and add anything?
No, I think Jarrod, you have summed up well, and I would only say that we were ready, just like Jarrod said, thanks to Zscaler and our strategy in terms of SD-WAN, hybrid cloud, many of the things that we have done over past many years. I think it has prepared us well. But from the security perspective, at the same time, it has opened up many more windows. There was a limited physical fence. Let's talk about, people are coming to the office. Now, all of those fences have gone away, and we're trying to cage and control the, tens of thousands of people, who are working from, we don't know where they're working from, right? I think the next big thing is going to be the secure remote access, meaning how do we now control your, control and protect individuals. Doesn't matter. It has to be device and location agnostic now. So I think that's where the future is.
That's awesome. I thank you both so much. This was a great conversation. I think it really summed up both of you and your journeys to zero trust. And one of the things now, so thank you both. This has been great. We'll transition over to Peter Smith, who Peter really is going to go ahead and kind of tie together. Zero trust really is, in my mind, a user to an application and an app to an app segmentation. And how do you really tie all that together? And Peter, with that, please take it away.